Okay, this is the 4-link servo mount. I'm going to do a little installation video just for anybody who might need help installing, or if you got it all to where you think you got it on there but maybe it's rubbing, something like that. There may be a little bit of rubbing on this little V section of the mount. Let's see if you can see that very well. Right where the two links are going to go in to that plate, the drive shaft may rub a tiny bit on there, and a little bit of rubbing isn't too bad. You definitely don't want it binding though, so we'll go ahead and just install this and see how it goes. Here's the two little servo posts, the uprights. Here's the plate. Here's a big giant servo I'm going to put on there, and we got a bunch of screws and an axle. So first I'm going to go ahead and put these little tiny screws into the posts through the plate. I'm just going to put it in the middle on this one, and you can put these kind of wherever as far as forward and backward goes. Sorry, I haven't drilled these holes out yet, so I'm going to drill these out a little bigger. Okay. So it's adjustable forward and backward, the servo posts. I'm just going to put them in the middle just because it doesn't really matter. Well, you know what? I'm going to put them in the front so we can see a little more, because this is a big long servo. Or I'll put them to the back rather. That way we might be able to see, or the front I mean, that way we may be able to see a little bit more back in the back of what I'm going to be talking about here. So I'm just going to put one in. And get it a little snug. And I'll go ahead and put another one in there. Alright. And the 3-link mount is fairly similar, but it is actually built with more of an angle because there was more issues with clearance with the 3-link mount than there is with the 4-link mount. And so the 3-link mount actually has raised mounting points here underneath the plate. I can show you real quick. Let's see. So here's a 3-link one. And you can see these posts are raised pretty high, and they're actually at an angle. You might not be able to see that in here. They're at an angle so that the plate will sit kind of forward mounted like that, kind of angled on the axle to give it a little bit more clearance in the back when you put that big giant 3-link in there right in the middle. Okay, last screw on the bottom here. Hopefully you guys can see this. I probably should have painted this mount before I did this. It's kind of hard to see anything. That's why all the stuff that I do in videos is usually painted, so you can see what the heck I'm doing, because when it's black it's just so hard to see anything. So I'm going to go ahead and put this mount on here, and the mount just kind of fits right in there like that. It goes right behind the first two little openings there. See the openings? It goes right into the openings there, just like that. And I'm going to stick these big giant long screws back in there. And when you're putting these big long ones in, you may need to apply slight pressure downward on the plate to keep it all lined up as they go in. Because what can happen is the screw, when you're putting it in, might not go through all parts of the plate, and then it will end up sticking out, you know, up or down, higher on either the front or the back. I'm just going to very lightly snug that. You don't want to over tighten anything when you're working with screws this small and parts this thin. You just kind of want to barely snug them. And again, just light pressure on top. keep it all in line when it's going in. And when I'll just go ahead and push the drive shaft on. There might be a tiny bit of rubbing. Let's find out. Okay, drive shaft is on. And you can see it spins pretty freely. It doesn't bind up anywhere. I can feel that it is just barely touching the mount right now. But I honestly wouldn't even worry about trying to file this one down for that reason. And this is just lightly, I mean just so ever so slightly touching the mount. Now what might happen though, when you put the servo on and you tighten the servo up, it may move just a little bit if you've done this any other way. So this is about the biggest servo you can buy for these things. This one is a AGFRC. This one right here, and it is a, let's see, B11 DLS. It is I think it's a digital servo. Yeah, and it has almost 3 kilograms of torque. Almost. But as seen in previous video, lost in an arm wrestling match to the Emax servo, even though this has almost double the torque. And it may be because of its digital settings instead of analog. The analog just keeps shoving until it breaks, and this one may be stopping and giving out, and that may be why it lost the arm wrestling match to the other servo. Yeah, in my tests. But let's see if we can't install this. So this servo is gonna come with, servos come with their own screws in their little packages, and sometimes you need to use them, sometimes you don't. I think on this one I'll probably end up needing to use them because I don't know, the screws that I have are these little 1.4 millimeter ones. I don't know, they'll probably work. Sorry, I don't know if you see it. They'll probably work. Maybe I'll just use these big screws that I got here. And these are 1.4 by 8 millimeter screws I'm going to put in here. But servos do usually come with their own screws, and you can use them in this mount. I've used the way this mount is designed. These little upright posts are slightly oversized holes. Specifically so that you can use the screws that come with the servo. If you try to reuse your tiny little 4 millimeter screws that came with the stock servo, you're probably not going to be able to tighten this up at all. It'll probably just immediately strip out, or it'll feel like it's stripped out, and this will just keep turning. These little screws here will just keep turning because there's just not enough meat after going through this big long servo mount here. There's just not enough meat left going into there anymore. So there's that. Servo is installed. Let's feel it now. Yeah, we're still good. It's just got ever so slightly. You might even be able to hear it. Let's see. I don't know if you can even hear that. There's just a teensy-meensy amount of where this is rubbing on that servo mount. So we'll pull that off. You can't really even see where it was doing anything there. But what you can do, if you put it on there and it is binding to where you don't like it, or you want to try and smooth it out a little more so that it doesn't touch the mount at all, the easiest way is probably just going to be able to use a little hobby knife like this. And so I'm just going to use this hobby knife and kind of lightly scrape right here, right in the middle where that servo would be binding. And just, be careful not to chop your fingers off or anything. I'm just going to scrape, kind of clean that up a little. Try to smoothen it out. Just cut a little tiny bit of material. You could do this with a Dremel, or you could take the mount back off, do it with a Dremel or a piece of sandpaper, or even a Brillo pad, or pretty much whatever you got. A sharp, hard rock would probably do it. Pretty much whatever you got to work with. Let's see if that was enough. Oh yeah. There, now it doesn't touch it at all. Now we have no binding whatsoever. Absolute zero. Just from that tiny little bit of scraping right there. And if these parts were printed out perfectly, there would be clearance there, but being hot melting plastic, they do have, you know, high spots and low spots in the plastic due to the layer lines. And so all I did here with this little knife is just kind of shorten, just smooth out those layer lines under there. Let's see if this will ever focus. You can see that slight V in there. It's manufactured like that. It has that little V in there just for the drive shaft to fit into. And like I was saying, this mount is adjustable forward and backward. So you can kind of see where this one is sitting right now. This is about the max as far as it will go forward. You could take the 2 screws out of the plate, out of the servo uprights, and push it forward one more slot and just have 1 screw holding it in, right? You could just use the back screw in the front hole if you had to. So technically it's a 5-position servo plate, but it was made to be more like a 3-position. 2 screws here, or you can move it back to 2 screws here, or you can move it back 1 more to 2 screws here, and you can see that would move the whole servo backwards about 10, 12 millimeters maybe. So if you're running into, you know, clearance issues with the frame or the bumper or anything like that, you can move the whole servo forward or backward, or if you can't get your linkage to line up, you can move it backward or forward, wherever you need it to. Try to get everything nice and smooth and easy. So I guess that's going to conclude this video. And if you have any questions or anything like that, don't hesitate to PM me. Send me a private message on Facebook at Mofo RC. Thank you.